The Afghan American Chamber of Commerce serves the interest of its members through numerous programs, advocates for a free and open market economy in Afghanistan, and endeavors to strengthen U.S.-Afghanistan economic relations. AACC's annual U.S.-Afghanistan Business Matchmaking Conference is the world's leading event for promotion of the private sector, business matchmaking, and investment in Afghanistan. AACC works to ensure that Afghanistan's economy and employment of the Afghan people remains a top priority for the U.S. and Afghan policymakers, and serves as a link between business and government to encourage progressive economic policies that will result in increased business, job creation, and investment between the U.S. and Afghanistan. We believe that peace and stability can only be achieved in Afghanistan through the success and growth of the private sector. It is the goal of AACC to promote the exchange of information and provide resources to its members through investment conferences, seminars, networking events, publications, and other avenues to stimulate U.S.-Afghanistan business and investment. The Afghan American Chamber of Commerce, facilitating U.S.-Afghan business, investment, and trade ties.
So just a quick few takeaways from President Ghani and from Ambassador Mohib. From President Ghani, we're managing our own development now. That's the message to us in the United States especially, that they're in charge of their own future, and we need to plug into their future, because in the end the Afghans have to manage their own development and their own private sector enabling environment. We cannot do it and are not expected to do it for them. I'm very appreciative of him saying that. Secondly, he said we want U.S. equipment and services whenever feasible. We need to step up on the U.S. side and try to do more in that respect. He talked about the High Economic Council. If you're not tracking Afghanistan regularly, the High Economic Council for me has become a godsend, because it really has brought together all of the decision making in one meeting on issues so that we can get decisions made quickly on transactions, which are complicated and have a lot of moving components within the government in Afghanistan. So we're appreciative that the AACC is working well, and it's working very well also on the PRISEC side. The Private Sector Advisory Council that the CEO Abdullah runs has helped solve a number of just business challenges, small things, big things that have been going on for years, and he's helping to spearhead getting those removed too. So on a partnership side, I see them working very well together, and we're happy about that. He also talked to the President about our support in the United States for lithium and rare earth metals. We're doing our best, but we'd also like to ask other American companies help in this area as well. Ambassador Mohib set a benchmark of 3,000 megawatts of electricity needed by 2020. That is a very ambitious goal in a year and a half to get done. But we know the President has already talked publicly in Afghanistan of having at least 6 to 7 new energy transactions signed by the end of this year, which would add a lot of megawatt to that. And of course, Kajaki 2 would add a big increase. So that's feasible, but it needs our work. On the regional connectivity side, Master Mohib was talking about, we have a whole panel on Thursday focused with Director General Sarouche and some of his partners from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on exactly what they're doing on the private sector component of the regional play. So you should listen in on that, because they're going to talk about various meetings and conferences and events that corporations can be invited to or participate in or get good policy data out of, because they're trying to extract from successful Central Asian republics regionally, what are they doing that's really working, and could we make that work in Afghanistan? That is what we really want from the Foreign Ministry. That's awesome. Lastly is the new online visa. This is great that we'll push that out, Mr. Ambassador, to all of our members quickly. We know that this is working in some of the other Central Asian countries. I know India has it, Pakistan I think has it now. So if we could get that for Afghanistan, that's a home run. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I'd now like to shift very quickly and introduce Dr. Mohammed Mustafa Mastoor. We're very honored that he's here today in Washington. Dr. Mastoor has an MD degree from Kabul University, if you haven't met him before. He also is probably the most overeducated person I've ever met in my life. He also has an MBA. He is finishing his MS in Health Systems Management on top of a medical degree. That is unprecedented. That's fantastic. And he also has a huge amount of experience in finance and in working in the government at a seriously high level. So we're very honored he's going to come and give us a little bit of an overview on how things are going in the Afghanistan economy and some things that we could take as recommendations going forward as private sector partners. Minister Mastoor.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies, gentlemen, and important and all, the courageous and enthusiastic private sector of both countries. It is really a great pleasure to be here. I see many of my old friends among the participants today. I've been for another event in New York, which was Financing for Development event, a big forum, where I only advocated for you, for the businesses. It was meetings with IMF, World Bank, AACC, the Deputy Secretary General of the UN, and other bilateral meetings with the countries. So first of all, let me thank you and Mr. Lutfi and the rest of the team and those who sponsored this very important event. I couldn't avoid this event, not being in the US and avoiding this important event. The very comprehensive remarks of Excellency the President and Excellency the Ambassador, Mr. Mohib, somehow helped me to shorten my remarks because many of these things already said. But before that, the introduction you've done about me, it reminds me that I need to update some of those things which I'm not longer following it, which was a master's degree on health system management. The economic outlook in Afghanistan is not something not known to many of you. The data is very tricky in Afghanistan because some of our partners, they are using their own data. But luckily, 3 days back, the Afghan Living Status Survey published, and many of those questions are now answered. So we need to go to the one set of data which is very comprehensive. The growth trajectory between 2002 and 2012 surged an average annual rate of 9.4%. But it challenged by the withdrawal of international security forces starting in 2001 and subsequent economic, security, and political transitions in December 2014. In the aftermath of the transition, the economy witnessed slowing down. Growth last year, it came down from up in 2015, it came down to 0.8%. But now, in 2017, it gone up to 2.6%, and now we are looking for 3% in 2018. However, we need to reconcile our figures with the IMF. The growth remains principally driven by agriculture in the country, and it's not something very new. Everybody knows that. 44% of the jobs are in the agriculture sector. The services and industries are following that. Unfortunately, the latest survey, which I mentioned before, the AACC, shows that the poverty gone up very fast, from 39.7% in 2013 to 54%. It is really high, and that's, it means that 54% of the population is living below the poverty line of Afghan poverty line, what we have, and it is already lower than the World Bank poverty line. 44% of the population is food insecure, and 24% of those people in the working age who are actively looking for a job, they are without a job. It means 1/4. But what I wanted to, why I mentioned these figures, from one hand, these are challenges, but particularly for the, and mainly for the government, it is a challenge, and specifically for the politicians. But for the private sector, sometimes they are looking to these figures as an opportunities. And we would like that to emphasize these things, and then in my next slides, which I don't have it in a PowerPoint, I should have had it in PowerPoint, I want to focus on those, how we can improve them together. Ambassador already mentioned about the total GDP size. The private investment so far is only 8% of the GDP. And another point that I would like to stress as an opportunity is the trade volume. The trade volume of $10 billion, and as Excellency the President said, it is 7-to-1. It means that our imports are 7 times or 8 times higher than the exports. What it says? It says that there is a huge potential in domestic market. We have to recapture that market. When I'm saying we, my call is on the private sector. And out of the $10 billion, if we have 8 billion imports, it means that we are sending 8 billion out, while there is a market of 8 billion to be spent in the country. And that is what my ministry, in the first day, as I promised the President and I promised the Parliament, that I would like to focus on this one, how to recapture the domestic market. In addition, how we can use the region and beyond, the markets in the region and beyond. However, the problems are there. Many of them are mentioned, the previous speakers mentioned them: security, infrastructure, high interest rates, high cost of production, human capital, and the corruption and other problems all are already mentioned. But the goals or the vision, what we've received from the leadership of the National Unity Government, and as the President also mentioned, the above 8% of the growth by 2020, it means that there is a big task ahead of us, and we need to jointly get there. I have here a chart, but unfortunately it is not in the screen, and that says that there is not shortage of capital inside. It means that the ratio of deposits to credits, it's also one of those that for us as policymakers in the economic sector we have to focus on. The ratio of the deposits to the credits, it is 1:20. Around $8 billion in our local banks, but the loans are just about $400 million. It also shows that what area to be addressed. The vision we heard from the Excellency the President is to reduce the poverty rate, one of the highest in the region, as I mentioned before, to embark on sustainable development path, and we need to target the growth rate to be around 8% or higher in the coming years. This requires structural economic transformation, and exploiting new sources of growth. Increase investments in human capital, improved agricultural productivity and development and of the extractive sector could provide significant opportunities for growth. However, an extremely important task would be to enhance our trade capacity, once again I focus on it, by strengthening our production base and increasing our exports. To ensure that demand taps domestic production rather than imports, we need to focus on policies that would encourage domestic production and government spending on non-tradable goods from local firms. And what it wants that we have all those policy reforms to reduce the production cost. We make the businesses competitive to those who are in the region. So once again, I would like to say that these are good opportunities for direct investment. And the paper that I am working on, and that is towards Afghanistan, towards a productive Afghanistan. We focused on top 10 import items and top 10 export items. Those things that now they are on the top of the list. The markets are there, either in Afghanistan or in the region. And in short term and medium term and long term, how to focus. Because in the last 16 years, we had great programs and policies, but it was not targeted, it was not selective, it was not focused. This is why some of our partners, the private partners, they are not that happy. So these are the wheat, cooking oil, cement, vegetables and cereals, sugar, meat, dairy, coal and electricity for the imports. We have a similar list for the exports as well. So ladies and gentlemen, as we heard before, there is a political will within the National Unity Government. Our donors now, they came to this conclusion that they don't have any other way except improving the capacity of the businesses inside. The Afghan businesses, businessmen and women, they are ready to work. They have the capital. They are ready to share the risk. The only thing what they want is the know-how. So the know-how should come with the foreign investment. And that is what we are there for. When I'm talking about the political will, as Excellency the President mentioned about the High Economic Council, the highest body for policy discussions is there. He is chairing it, the Chief Executive, the Vice President, and the Deputy Chief Executive, and all government officials in the economic sector are there. Then we have an economic, but the important thing is that the private sector are there. The economic subcommittee of the Council of Ministers and other forum for implementation of these policies. We have PRISEC. PRISEC is the Private Sector Executive Committee, with donors and private sector and the government is there. Then we have the Procurement Committee. So all this shows that there is an enhanced dialogue between the public and private. The PPD is there. In every meeting, now you see Mr. Nasrat, the President of the Chamber of Commerce. We have the President of the Chamber of Industries, is he here? Yeah, and then International Chamber of Commerce, and then for the women, and then the small and medium size. So it was not the same in the past 16 years. So that is a great opportunity. So finally, just to conclude, that after this meeting, I will have another serious meeting with IMF, again to emphasize the vision of the President, which now he says we are going more from revenue to growth. And that we need to convince the IMF for that shift. So all we need to join hands, government to government, government to business, business to business, these type of forums, and we create a meaningful partnership so that we make the National Unity Government leadership's vision to a reality, which was the business's growth of engine, engine of growth. So wish all of you a very successful program with very practical and clear roadmap, which the private sector strength is that one. And I wish I could have been with you for the whole day and for the whole conference, but I need to convince IMF. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I think a couple of key things. So one of the issues that has come to us from our business community has been we now have an HEC regularly meeting and making decisions, and we now have a national procurement office that's now reviewing decisions as well. But for business community, what we need most is predictability and continuity of decisions. So one of the things that we've noticed is sometimes the decision will get made, it'll get announced by both the private sector partners and the government partners, and then we'll shortly, maybe 30 days later, find out, well, the decision is really not final yet because NPA or somebody else hasn't made another decision. I think for the betterment of our narrative as an organization representing businesses, we want to see a decision made and then move on. Let the private sector go on with that decision. If we have to continually delay final implementation because of other adherence to the decision-making process, it undermines what foreign investors, when they're looking at the market, they think, wow, that might take us 2 years to get that decision made for a major investment. We don't want to invest that amount of time. We're better off going to India or Tajikistan or some other place. So we'd like to see shorter decision-making time periods and compressed so that all those decisions are made together at one time and things don't have to get delayed. I think that would make a very, very positive impact. We love the fact that you talked about growth because business wants growth. We want to see rapid economic growth in the country, and we know that can be driven by private sector companies, especially in the sectors that we're going to be talking about at this conference.